Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
Let's go! All right, everybody, welcome into another edition of Gas. You already see the grinning Jason Anik because he cannot help himself on a day like today where we're going to have probably the most energized and the most charged edition of Gas that we have ever put out, ladies and gentlemen. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. Happy New Year, friend.
Happy 2025, brother. You know, great having you all with us on Gas, G-A-S, Gresh, Anik Show. Cody Merrow running it in the back. Nice, fresh open for the new year, Cody Merrow. I like that. Endless things to talk about, Gresh. You know, and as you know, I do some programming for oddshark.com. You are everywhere, all over New England and in your national radio wavelengths. But so much to talk about. And so keeping it fresh on a day-to-day basis is no problem for me because I'm so juiced about the Wild Card Weekend. We get to talk about Gerard Mayo. But how are you?
Oh, dude, I'm great. There's nothing better than being right. And I was right when it came to the boobery, the non-readiness, and just how ineffective Gerard Mayo was. So, you know, for me, Jay, I got no problem really with any of this right now.
Well, so Gerard Mayo fired 30 minutes after the final game in Week 18. And Andy Gresh, while you say you like to be right, I actually don't give a shit if I'm wrong. And I'm happy to admit that I'm wrong because I was happy when Gerard Mayo got the job. However, it was immediately clear to me, even though I wanted him to get the job, that he was not the man for the job and incapable of handling it. But I just want to touch on a couple things with you that stood out to me. We could do days on this, right? But one of the things that Bob Kraft said, and we talk about the sentimentality of Bob Kraft, right? Now, first round draft picks, they have a very special place in the heart of the Krafts, right? I just feel as though with Gerard Mayo, right? Green dot on his helmet in 2008, defensive rookie of the year, right? And one of the quotes from Kraft's firing speech, quote, when other teams started requesting to interview him, talking about Mayo, I feared I would lose him and committed to making him our next coach. So much truth and so messed up in my mind, right? And so the immediate firing of Gerard Mayo, rumblings about Mike Vrabel, you know, interviewing with the Jets. So are we rushing to get Mike Vrabel? Vrabel may very well be the guy, and I know we'll get to that later, but that quote from Kraft stood out to me. I said I was happy Gerard Mayo got the job. I'm thrilled that we don't have to wait a year to talk about this. Couldn't have been a day too soon.
Well, I think what they did was they also deflected from the fact that they screwed up the number one pick. And I know you and I are going to unpack that a little more later. But look, Robert Kraft had to do this, and he had to deal with the egg that was going to be on his face. Gerard, I've said this from the very beginning. The only philosophy that Gerard Mayo had was, I'm different than Bill. I'm not a meanie. And we saw exactly what can happen to a guy who is not only soft personality-wise, and I say that in terms of head coach circles, because I like Gerard Mayo. He's a good, decent human being. But you have to be a prick as a head coach. You can't worry about the feelings. I also don't think there are guys in that locker room who are like, I'm not going to run hard on the kickoff because the coach doesn't know my Aunt Mamie or something like that, which was some of the horse shit we were hearing from some of those guys at the end of the year. Oh, Bill didn't do this. Bill didn't do that. Yeah, you know what Bill Belichick did not care about? He did not care about the extra facilities that Alabama had that they don't there. He didn't care about trying to be friends with everybody, and he didn't care about trying to be friends with the media. And that's exactly what Gerard Mayo did. And you know what? I hate pussy, pussy, pussy. That's what it was. Not in the good way, but in the bad football way. Everything you can do to soften an organization, Gerard Mayo did with the new wacky tight pants approach. And I'm not saying, Jay, you got to be a jerk, but you got to be firm about things. Like sitting Jelani Tavai for a quarter in the final game because he told the fans off. Oh, boy, that screamed toughness. This guy couldn't go fast enough. Sorry.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And even if it took them not losing that final game and sliding from the first pick to the fourth pick, even if it took that for this move to be made, great. I think it's going to be hard to mess up this next candidate. Do you agree with that?
Oh, it can, absolutely. Because you will know. Here's why, Jay. We all like Mike Vrabel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows the inside of the Patriots more than Mike Vrabel, at least in some ways, as to what it was like there? Because here's all I know. Whenever they sat down with the press conference for Gerard Mayo, all they talked about was collaboration and knocking down silos. So now after a year, you found out that you kind of want to go back to something like that. If you're Mike Vrabel, Jay, why would you trust Robert and Jonathan Kraft to give you the runway and the leeway that they didn't give Mayo? And there's a lot of elements about Vrabel that are like Belichick that they supposedly didn't like in the end. So is this literally, Jay, in your opinion, all just about control?
Fascinating stuff there. And you really give me pause when you come at it from that angle, because I certainly, and call it a novice approach, but I think the job is super appealing. You talk about the cap space. You could talk about Drake fucking May at 22 years old. So I still think the job is super appealing. Even for a guy like Mike Vrabel, even given the Kraft situation, because I just think Mike Vrabel knows how to, he's been there, done that, knows how to be a head football coach, knows how to be a prick when he needs to be a prick, and most certainly knows how to endear himself to these guys when he needs to. So talk about leader of men. Mike Vrabel checks every box. I know we're going to talk more about the candidates, but back to this sort of epic fail, right? And Joe Milton. And Cody Merrow, our producer, I don't know if he said it off screen or on last week, but we were talking about Joe. He was like, oh, you got to start Joe Milton. And I was like, no, you don't, because that gives you a chance to win the football game. This, right? Jacoby Brissett, you paid Jacoby Brissett money to come in and do whatever it takes. And what it took was losing this football game. And the fact that they didn't put themselves in a position to obtain additional draft capital by moving out of that number one slot or drafting Travis Hunter, regardless of where it may go, because I know the needs are endless and hopefully they get a good offensive lineman. And gosh, do they need a lineman fresh more than anything?
Yeah.
You know, so I still am glass half full on the New England Patriots, because I don't believe they can mess this up. Whether it's Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Liam Cohen, I know we're going to talk about candidates more specifically. I don't think they can mess this up even if they try, given that the top few candidates almost remind me of the last three quarterbacks in last year's draft with Williams, Daniels, and May, where they all still, to me, are franchise guys.
Well, let's Bill Faulkner, who is watching the show. Do you think Gerard Mayo gave the Patriots the Lovie Smith treatment? And no, I don't think so. In fact, I think Gerard Mayo was pretty open about all week. He was, hey, we're playing to win the game. But here's what I don't understand. If Bob Kraft was just going to fire Gerard Mayo after the game anyway, and his mind was made up, why do you not give him the orders? You don't come out and say, hey, I don't want you to intentionally lose, but I would also like the number one pick. So let's maybe try to make that happen if we can. I'm not going to tell you to go out there and do anything silly, but I would like the number one pick. You're the owner of the team. You're his boss. You can go tell him that. And then, by the way, Gerard Mayo, Jay, is getting, I do believe, about a $15 million check when it's all said and done to exit stage left. So even if Robert Kraft would have told Gerard Mayo before the game, I'd like the number one pick, and he was still going to let him go, he's still giving him a hell of a consolation prize. So I wouldn't feel bad about it at all, but that's what I don't understand. Kraft, give the code red for that pick, for God's sakes.
You know, but my brother asked a question last week, and how do you try and lose a football game? And you talked about there being an art to it, right? But especially going against a Buffalo Bills team that's really not trying to win the game and has a perfect shitty backup in Mitch Trubisky to do so. I'm thinking to myself, why aren't the Patriots letting the Bills run this fucking kickback? Excuse my language with the F word. I'm just fired up. But why aren't they letting them run the kickback? Why, right? And you know, Gresh, I made a lot of money betting on the New England Patriots this weekend because I absolutely knew that was how it was going to go. Faulkner thinks Robert told Gerard he was out before the game because and look, if Gerard, even if Gerard thought he may lose his job after the game and was trying to win, whatever the art component was, Gresh, they didn't get the art component right in their communication.
Yeah, and you got to kind of, again, sort of tell the head coach, this is what I want. This is what I would like. Now, the number 4 pick isn't completely devastating. However, you and I started to allow ourselves to go down the road of starting to think about Travis Hunter, and we can kind of circle back to that, because when it comes to this head coaching search, Chad, I'd like to play a little game with you. It's a little game of who, for those of you who are WWE fans and love Boston's own Kofi Kingston, okay?
Oh, I didn't get the reference. You could be sure.
Oh, no, I know. That's, by the way, Killer Raw on Netflix last night. Oh, my God. You could see the production cross-pollination between UFC and WWE, but I digress.
Can I digress real quickly?
No,
on
please.
On Netflix, I watched episode 1 of The Comeback, the 2004 Boston Red Sox thing. And the only reason I watched it is because I have a bad knee, because I'm a twitchy guy. I like bouncing around. I can't sit and watch things, right? But I watched that, right? And we don't need to go down a baseball train, but Grady Little and Gerard Mayo are similar to me. And I'll leave it at that.
Oh, my God. All right. That's, you and I are going to have a private.
Yes.
No, we're going to have a private conversation on that one, because I'm actually a Grady Little defender. I know. So I don't want to mess you. I see it in your eyes already.
Love that, though. I hear you. I bet you can convince me, because I sneaky love Grady Little too. But
it's Pedro freaking Martinez, and it was a bullpen that sucked. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. You now you got my mind racing.
I'm sorry.
No, I love
coaching.
it.
Who
is the outside the box candidate for you? I have one, John Gruden.
Wow.
Here's the connection. Think of this. John Gruden started, or one of his earlier stops was in Green Bay. Who was there? Ron Wolf, who is still picking the players for the Patriots. Little Elliott. Maybe there's a connection there.
Very interesting. That would be outside the box or even on another planet. But we will see. So I don't think this candidate is necessarily outside the box, but I am starting to like this candidate more and more, and it's Liam Cohen, the 39-year-old offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay, right? So let's talk about it. From Warwick, Rhode Island, right? Doesn't have a Massachusetts or New England accent, which kind of disappoints me, but right? Just bear with us, New England folks, right? UMass grad, was roommates with Victor Cruz at UMass, wore number 12 because he was a Tom Brady fan, right? So he's the OC in Tampa Bay. I don't think too many people were discussing him last offseason, so maybe he's outside the box, but he's so sharp on the microphone and can't be dumb walking around Brown University. He's been all over New England, so I think that would be a very interesting candidate. I don't think he's going to get the job, so he's outside the box a little bit for me.
He is, and let me just, I know Liam personally and have since he was a quarterback at UMass and calling those games. In fact, let me give you a little 6 degrees of separation. Liam's dad, Tim was the high school football coach at Exeter West Greenwich High School, and he was the golf coach in the early 90s. So I, as an all-state football player in Rhode Island, Tim obviously knew who I was. I played golf, so he was the golf coach at Exeter West Greenwich. They were in our division. Tim and I got to know each other because one of the reasons the schools liked me was because I played golf and I had lots of elasticity, so you can put weight on guys like that, right? And I remember Tim like putting me over as an opposing coach to other people. And Rhode Island, I went to URI anyway, so it's all incestuous. But I've known Liam since probably, he was 18 years old, slinging it up at UMass. He's almost there. It would be Mayo-like if he got a job now, I think. And Liam is too smart to – now, he would take the opportunity because you take it if it's offered, no question. But I think this is where Mayo was a couple years ago, Jay, where Liam gets in the cycle of interviews. And then that kind of leads you to maybe where Ben Johnson is, where it feels like he might actually get a head coaching job this time around, the Detroit offensive coordinator.
I like everything you said, other than injecting the name Gerard Mayo into the conversation, because I don't think Gerard Mayo is a head coach in the National Football League, and I absolutely believe Liam Cohen is, right? And
I do too. It just he needs a few more years.
And I think that's a very good point, but, I hate to go back to this documentary, but Theo Epstein at 28, leading the Red Sox, right? You could say he maybe needed a few more years, but he was capable of doing the job, and so a little bit too early for a guy that's capable. Gerard Mayo, I don't think, but Kraft says, I think, he's a future head coach in this league. I think I'd be shocked if he gets another head football coaching job in this league, Gerard Mayo. Do you
agree?
I
agree. And if I'm Mayo, I'm just taking the money and riding off into the sunset. Like, now put the NFL in your rearview mirror. You made, 60 million or whatever it is, including the free money you're going to get from Robert Kraft now. So just take it and run. Just get the heck out. Okay, who is the nightmare candidate for you? Mine is Ben Johnson. Again, I don't want another neophyte. I'll just leave it at that.
So on that point, for Ben Johnson being your nightmare candidate, your guy Mike Florio made a really interesting point. Sorry, but it was a really smart point, talking about, like, since when did a guy who's just a gifted coordinator and great at that job automatically become a surefire great head coach, or that being the right gig for that person? Whether it's Ben Johnson, even a guy like Aaron Glenn running the defense, is he a head? I wouldn't be looking at Aaron Glenn to run my football team. But anyway, my nightmare candidate for the head football coach, is Josh McDaniels. That is my nightmare. Now, our dream candidate is next, right? But we're talking head football coach. I like Josh McDaniels. I don't love him. I think he's an overrated coordinator. I think Tom Brady had a lot to do with this success, but he did a lot for Mac Jones in Mac Jones' rookie season. And certainly, if Josh McDaniels is only the offensive coordinator for Drake May under maybe a Mike Vrabel head coach, give me all of that. But as the head football coach, Josh McDaniels, no way that guy. You talk about being a prick or getting up in front of a room. No.
And,
nightmare.
Right, Jay, you mentioned this earlier about the Giants are staying put. One of the guys you and I had talked about as maybe being an offensive coordinator could have been Brian Daboll. He's going to stay the head coach of the Giants. So there's another guy that's off the board that we might have felt okay about. Who is the perfect candidate? You and I are probably sharing a brain on this one.
No, actually, we're not. And I know we'll get to that in a minute, but your nightmare candidate is my perfect candidate, and his name is Benjamin Johnson. Tony Farmer on The Huddle, who I work with every week, put it best. And he, that Ben Johnson may be more of a long game, and Drake May at 22 years old is more of a long game, right? Let me just talk about Ben Johnson a little bit, right? I know you know all this, right? You know where he graduated college,
Honestly, I have no idea.
The University of North Carolina, Chapel Bill. So he fucking walk on at University of North Carolina. You see it over my left shoulder, right? University of North Carolina has been infiltrated into New England sports, right? So Drake May, North Carolina, right? So Ben Johnson competed as the number 3 backup in 2005 and 2006 at North Carolina, right? Pretended to be Joe Montana as a kid. We like that. Brady loved Joe Montana, right? Ben Johnson, this is from his bio at North Carolina, is proficient in solving difficult math equations. I love that. He was a mathematics major. I love that. You can say tight pants society. I just think more risk and reward with Ben Johnson, right? Vrabel, definitely safer, definitely the proven commodity. And I would love Vrabel. Don't get me wrong. I know you're probably going to talk about Mike Vrabel, but I believe in Ben Johnson. And so that would be, if I was making the choice, that would be my selection.
Wow. I have a lot of reasons to not dig the guy. I do think the experience matters here, because I just wonder how it would translate with this particular group of guys. And by the way, who knows who's going to be back, of that guy walking in after just having a first-time head coach. Can he bring enough offensive people with him? And who's going to manage the clock? Because a lot of these first-year coaches,
the mathematics major.
Oh, God almighty.
Well, no, I mean, that's a pretty good comeback to your who's going to manage the clock.
I mean, it's
Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen to manage the fucking clock as an aside to their job, as 30 of the 32 can do.
I mean, you'd like to think so, but who, honestly though, Jay, who are the ones that get in trouble? It's all these offensive guys who you would think have managed the clock before, but they've only managed the clock through the purview of offense. Like I remember talking with special teams guys about this. Special teams guys have to worry about the clock all the time. That's why, to me, people like Harbaugh and, is pretty good at it. But nevertheless,
your boy Darren Rizzi, who I would love to be a head coach. He should have been on my list here in some category today. I love him. Not just because you played with him.
No, I do too. And he did about as good a job as you can do. I think they're giving him a real interview down there, which is at least good. So we'll see. I love my man Riz, but who gets the job? I've come around on this. I really have. I got Brian Flores. And a couple of reasons. He's been a head coach who screwed up. The reason he screwed up was because he tried to be too tough and got into snits with people that he didn't need to. So he goes to Minnesota and works for a different temperament of a head coach in Kevin O'Connell. He didn't clearly lose his ability to communicate with the players because the Minnesota defense has been pretty good. It would also heal Robert Kraft's heart because it's another guy that he knew. It's someone he's giving an opportunity to, but it's someone who did go screw up somewhere else. I don't know. I just feel like that if you're trying to find, if Robert Kraft's really kind of married to a Gerard Mayo type, then Brian Flores is the experienced version of that.
Gosh, that's another, I mean, I like Brian Flores, and that's nothing really about him. Do you really believe, Gresh? I hate to say, but gun to your head, Brian Flores is on that podium? I don't really believe that.
I feel like that if it's between Vrabel and Flores, Vrabel will find reason not to come here, and he's been vocal about that in the past. And does Vrabel want control? That's the other thing, too. You know, if the Jets say, hey, Mike, you get to play the role of Bill Belichick, and we'll give you a heavy say in personnel, bet your ass he ain't getting that in New England.
Great stuff there. I do believe the New England job will ultimately end up with Mike Vrabel, though, and I'm fine with that, right?
I hope so.
We talk about he's proven, and like for me, right, as much as I say that Ben Johnson would be my perfect candidate, I'd be more excited about Mike Vrabel, if I'm being honest. Like Mike Vrabel would get me all fired up every week on the podium. And I'll say this is the final time that I will reference the comeback documentary. I've only seen one episode, right? But the Red Sox back in 2003 signed Billy Beane. He was going to come be the GM above Theo Epstein. And, you know, the owners are cracking champagne. We got Billy Beane coming to town, right? But then he decides to stay out in Cali with his family. To me, it's the same thing. Even though I want Ben Johnson, if Ben Johnson, and then, so excuse me, let me finish the story. Theo becomes the GM. They didn't crack any more champagne. So what I'm telling you is if Mike Vrabel's the head coach, we are cracking champagne. Even though I want Ben Johnson, I'm not cracking champagne for Ben Johnson. But Mike Vrabel feels as though I'm like more excited for him, even though if I was making the selection, it'd be Ben Johnson.
And let me just remind people of this real quickly. When Mike Vrabel was getting ready to leave the Patriots, he was the one who said to the Crafts, and I do believe it was Jonathan in particular, but don't hold me to that, when they were building Patriot Place, you know, he was the one who basically wisecracked, you know, where's our slice of that? So, you know, Vrabel is not afraid to say it, but is that right for the Kraft family right now? Do they just remember it was a big deal to them to, you know, taking back my franchise but you're going to turn around and give a guy, you know, of similar thought process power. So it will be interesting to see, brother.
Hey, while we're on the Crafts, yes, please, just quickly, while we're on the Crafts, can I read you a text that my brother sent me and some others real quick? My brother, Jason Anik, UFC commentator. Quote, I'm so anti-Kraft right now. I might need a new team, at least a clown t-shirt with Jonathan's weak ass face.
Oh, stiff.
Jonathan's weak ass face. Talking about Jonathan Kraft coming from Jason Anik. That's a good way to put it with that face. They better get this fucking thing right.
I'll say this. I know John Kraft is being heard now, because that's a part of the reason I think why Gerard Mayo's gone. He kind of got dad to see the light. So maybe that John will be a part of bringing in Mike Vrabel. In fact, you could argue Jonathan Kraft might be the impediment to bringing in Mike Vrabel. So hopefully from one John to another, you know, the two assholes can figure it out. No. Okay. Can we get to the other part of the Patriots game that does tie into the rest of the NFL, and that is that with the Patriots win, they lost the number 1 pick, Jay, and now it's number 4, and I don't see a path to them getting Travis Hunter, and I'm kind of bummed.
Yeah, you and I got very excited about the prospect of them getting Travis Hunter, but I think we both a week ago didn't think it was going to happen because we envisioned ourselves sitting here today having the Patriots thrown up all over themselves.
Yeah.
I am trying to be glass half full about this because I've talked about it ad nauseum in terms of the opportunity to draft in the number one slot and maybe move, to be in that slot with all the draft, with all the capital, the cap money that you already have, right? Number one in the league and cap space available. But to be in that slot, to be able to move out of that spot and maybe acquire some capital. You and I actually would have preferred them, and I don't want to speak for you, actually take Travis Hunter, then move out of that spot and not get him. We both really wanted Travis Hunter, regardless of the quarterbacks and how good we are compared to last year's class. But I'm trying to be glass half full, and we talk about the Patriots have endless needs. I think free agency is equally important. Is T. Higgins really walking through that door? I'm not so sure Cincinnati lets him go, but if he's walking through that door and the best tackle in the league, right? I was joking. I was saying, instead of watching Travis Hunter film, I'm watching film on Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas, Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. I like what I'm seeing in both those spots. So for me, someone to sort of protect Drake May at 22 years old for years, I'm starting to see glass half full there.
Look, we know they need a lineman, and they'll be able to get one at number 4 and probably the best tackle in the draft. Now, that's also being determined by them. So hopefully they land on some of these guys that are the best tackles in the draft. And I allowed myself to get excited for the exciting player, which for me, I never do. Normally I would lean, go get the left tackle, go get a big guy. And even there's a mock draft from tankathon.com where, Tennessee and Cleveland would overdraft both those quarterbacks, but you have Travis Hunter land with the New York Giants in this instance. My goodness gracious, with what Brian Daboll can do and with Malik Neighbors on the other side, if they play him at wide receiver. And then there is the McMillan kid, the wide receiver from Arizona, which would shock me if they stayed at 4 and still went with a wide receiver not named Travis Hunter. I think because they're locked in at 4, you're thinking tackle, but look at the top of that draft, Jay. If you're Tennessee or Cleveland, isn't that a death blow automatically to draft 2 guys that are just the best quarterbacks in this draft, but not really worthy of the number 1 and the number 2 pick?
Great stuff. Great question. This is a fascinating board, and these boards are going to change a lot. There's going to be a lot more information that comes out. I believe Cameron Ward and Shedeur Sanders, right? I bet on Cam Ward to be the number 1 pick yesterday at -125 because some of the guys I know at oddchart.com that follow college football believe that he's the much more ready pro than Shedeur Sanders. Now, so I believe that line, there may be some value on Cam Ward as of now. In terms of those spots, they are certainly the Cleveland Browns could perhaps delay things a little bit and recover some real draft capital and start to flip things because Deshaun Watson really ain't going anywhere. But I thought Albert Breer made a very interesting point as we look at 4 through 9 and wherever it goes. The receiver at Ohio State, where's he? But Albert Breer referred to the old Jimmy Johnson value chart, and he's a Patriots fan, New England guy. He talked about the Patriots moving from 1st to the 4th pick is like the equivalent of the 10th overall pick. And that's kind of the rub, is that whoever they take at 4, it's like a top 10 pick. It's not one of these sort of elite top 3 picks or even the opportunity to trade and move out.
Here's the thing that I was working on, thinking that the Patriots might have had the number 1 pick, and that say they could have gotten Travis Hunter. They have a high 2nd rounder, but Jay, they also have 2 3rd-round picks, the Matt Judon trade. So if the Patriots either want to move up from 4 to 2 because they get horny for somebody, they would sacrifice their 2nd-round pick to do so, but you have 2/3 that are pretty high. Or you draft who you want at number 4, you take the 2nd-round pick and the 3rd-round pick from Atlanta, you move back into the lower part of the 1st round where there's going to be a chunk of offensive tackles that are going to be there between like 22 and 30, at least projected, to where you could jump up and maybe go grab somebody else. So the Patriots have enough capital to do with what they want. The question is, are they going to be formulaic in putting this together, or are they still going to roll the dice and, take some guys in the 2nd round the way Bill Belichick used to, that are real boom or bust? See Robert Gronkowski.
I would love to be able to look at this board and have great confidence in the people making the decisions, right? I brought up the name Louis Riddick, right? I would love the Patriots to have someone like Louis Riddick bring someone in who has sort of a fresh look and a really good feel for the athletes in this league in a way that I don't think Elliot Wolf does. So for me, that's kind of where it starts, that I would love to be able to look at this board and not have to worry about it because it was in the hands of someone like Louis Riddick. But I'll ask you to sort of rephrase the question to you, because you seem to be, to use your word, horny for Hunter. So would you like to see the Patriots aggressively try to move into the number 2 spot to get Travis Hunter? I know it may depend on what the asking price is.
Yeah, I think as long as it is, the second rounder to jump up and it's this year, then obviously you consider. What I don't want the Patriots to do is trade future picks, because that's how you really get yourself in trouble, because then you're overbuying. You're trying to put it together too quickly instead of building a program. Look, I think Travis Hunter is going to be a transcendent player, and this is a guy who, to me, can have Randy Moss type impact. And you could pick the side of the ball you want him to have big impact on, which just makes it sick. And I went to the Patriots game on Sunday, Jay. Okay. So for now, Jay, you can know that we're like keeping our tickets kind of, but we're in the, is it time to give them up now? They were giving away in the club area, right? The club area, folks, in most stadiums is where people pay extra to be able to go inside and pay extra to buy food and stuff like that. That area was half empty where we were, and there were about 40,000 people in the stadium on Sunday. That's why I think the Patriots might want to push for a Travis Hunter, because you can get Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks, and that's the right move for the football team. What's going to get fans all whooped up and ready to go? Have the Heisman winner who can play on both sides. Imagine him as a punt returner in the NFL as well. He's one of those, you just find a way to get him the ball.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel as though teams have stopped doing that because they want to protect them over the years. You don't really see it unless it's in like the postseason. Am I wrong?
Oh, but that's the whole point of having someone like that. I'm with you. Or, big game for a division title. Okay, kid, go back there. You're fielding them tonight. Maybe not in cold Buffalo, but nevertheless.
But I will say, if I lived in New England, if there's any type of discount on those club seats, I would be buying low as season tickets to be able to watch Drake May at 22 years old, because as long as they hang on to him, I hope it's not a bumpy ride and they pick the right leadership above him right now. But I really believe in him to a great extent. I think you're going to see a boy that looks more like a man when he comes back next year. As you have kids, when they grow up, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, over the summer, they get a lot bigger. Like, I actually think Drake May probably going to look older, and I think he's going to look older on the field too.
Well, I know we got more to get to. I mean, the top of the draft will be very interesting as it develops. I would say be smart like Jason Anik and jump on some of those betting markets. I know they'll start to come up. And I also know that, at least with the top 3, we'll get the specific player to a specific team. So I think once the markets kind of settle down a little bit and we have like some Senior Bowl games and things of that nature, hopefully those odds will start to get rolled out more and more to degenerati like us. Speaking of degenerati like us, how about some betting trends from this season, right? Favorites won the day at 145 and 127 against the spread. Second straight year where favorites were profitable. I'm surprised at that.
Well, there's a reason why it's here, and that was after a 5-year stretch where underdogs had won the day and been over 500. Yep. I think it's really interesting. But what I'll say, Gresh, from a gambling standpoint, over the last 2 years of my life, I've done more NFL betting content than ever before. And I could sound like an amateur saying this, but I've tried to tune out as much noise as I can over the last 2 years when it comes to handicapping the league and making picks. And I'm not saying that I've crushed the board, but I've tended to play favorites and not be afraid to lay points. I talked to one of my friends who knows nothing about the NFL. We were with our kids, some like birthday party this weekend. And he's telling me, -6.5, you play the favorite. Over, if it's 7.5, you play the underdog, right? And I said, it's a really long answer, my friend. But I'll tell you that I've been very willing to play the team that's -7.5 because they are so for a reason. So it's interesting. I don't necessarily expect a trend to dip there. If that continues, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, home favorites really kind of won the day. The road teams were almost even against the spread. Now, they did kind of tank in week 18, 6-10 against the spread were the road teams, but nevertheless, some interesting trends, friend, as you and I jump into wild card weekend. So we have Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday night game. Saturday, the early game, and I feel like there is massive value here. The LA Chargers -3 are going to be at the Houston Texans. The number on this is 43.5. This will be the first game on Saturday. This line opened at Chargers -2.5. And Jay, I can't believe it's only LA -3.
That implies that you like the Chargers a lot.
Love them. Love them.
So this league is funky, right? And John, my brother John and I do a show on oddchart.com Thursdays, 11 a.m. We'll pick 5 games against the spread every week. So you can be sure that I'm going to be tasked with picking every one of these games against the spread. I absolutely I think I love the Chargers on the money line, but forced to pick this game today on a Tuesday against the spread, I take the Texans +3. I still think the Texans' best, dare I say, could be in front of them, right? Joe Mixon scares me a little bit. He hasn't been that great down the stretch, and he was giving me a lot of confidence early in the season. But the Chargers, they're better against the pass than the run. And if Joe Mixon can do some things, and CJ Stroud, some of the dimes he dropped earlier in this season blew me away. And I think it may be a year too early for the Jim Harbaugh regime to really make a run. So I don't love the Chargers as much as you. I am leaning Texans at this point.
Wow. I like the Chargers for 3 reasons. They did just sign Zeke Elliott, and they need depth at running back. And that's a guy who, if he comes in and gives you 8 carries or some goal line runs, that's somebody who will play up, as we saw with the New England Patriots last year. I think everybody was happy with the performance of Zeke, but you realize he's not a 40 carry a game guy anymore.
All right. So number 1 reason for you is Ezekiel Elliott. What are reasons 2 and 3?
Well, the reason is the depth at running.
I know.
back.
I'm fucking with you.
It'll balance out the run game. I think Jim Harbaugh is the better coach, and I do think coaching matters in the postseason. That's no disrespect to D'Amico Ryans.
Yep,
but
heard.
We know that Jim Harbaugh is pretty good. And the other one is, believe it or not, I think Justin Herbert has been underutilized this year. If they got to get into a shootout, the Chargers can do that. The problem is the head coach doesn't want to do that. But everybody come on, 2 years ago, if you have sold your soul to get Justin Herbert in New England, a lot of people would have, and the buzz has calmed down. But look at his numbers. He's had a really nice year. He's done a better job of taking care of the ball. They just haven't busted him out of bubble wrap yet.
I agree. And Drake, that's the comparison for me. Drake May, I see a lot of Justin Herbert in. And you talk about the Chargers, right? The best team against the spread this season, 13-4 against the spread, 11-2 against the spread as favorites, 6-1 against the spread as road favorites. Woo! But home underdogs in wild card games, as the Texans are, 29-1 against the spread all time with a winning outright record, 16-14. So a little bit of flyer. Last year, both home underdogs won outright. Buccaneers +3.5 versus the Eagles. Texans +2.5 versus the Browns. Different circumstances there. I believe Joe Flacco was a quarterback. We're on opposing sides there. So tail or fade at your leisure.
I like it. And then on Saturday night, we're going to get the Steelers at the Ravens. Ravens 9.5-point favorites. It opened at 8.5. The total on this one is 45.5. And I mean, the Steelers right now are lower than the rent on a burning building. And I really want to go favorite here because I believe in Baltimore, but the divisional familiarity makes me think Steelers end up covering, but I all but guarantee the Steelers are losing this game.
I agree with every word of that. One quick tidbit for you. In the Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh matchups, underdogs 25-10-1 against the spread. That jives with your point. Even though it's a division matchup, this to me is the blowout of the board. I see no scenario by which the Pittsburgh Steelers go in there. They lost their 34-17 in Baltimore on December 21st, week 16, I believe. I see no scenario in which Pittsburgh goes in and emerges victorious. I love the Ravens 6-1 to win the Super Bowl. I really think I'm going to place a decent sized bet on that today. Yesterday on OddsShark, I gave out Eagles over Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Not trying to get too far ahead, but I love the Ravens. I see no way they lose. I think you just sort of lay the points and close your eyes. Pittsburgh, this is going to be, I believe they've lost 4 straight. I think they lose 5 straight, ending what was a great story, but a really dismal finish.
Well, if there were a head coach who had lost 4 in a row going into the postseason and then got blown out by a divisional opponent in the postseason, normally that head coach would probably run the risk of getting fired. It's not going to happen to Mike Tomlin, clearly, but it just goes to show sort of the situation that the Steelers are in. And you can see it's already up to Ravens -10 on DraftKings. And it's -500 on the money line already for the Ravens. Not a lot of people are going to be vibing the Steelers here. Although for somebody who likes the Steelers to cover, I like seeing that number go up. If I can get another half point, it makes me sort of believe that, all right, that's a big number between teams with familiarity. Old corny Russell, find a way to at least keep it to within 7.
No, I hear you. And I'd still be willing to lay 10.5, up to, I don't think I'd cross over to 11, but let's say Pittsburgh gets up 7-0, Gresh, right? How do you like your 10.5? Pretty good. And it's very easy that can happen. Steelers 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 playoff games, 2-8-1 against the spread in the playoffs since 2011, 7-10-1 against the spread in the playoffs under Mike Tomlin. They had a really tough schedule down the stretch, and they proved to be not as good as any of those contenders. I think Steelers one and done. I think it's going to be fascinating offseason. I mean, I don't think you bring back Danger, Russ.
Oh, I don't think so either. That's a team who has got to figure out what their quarterback situation is. On Sunday at 1, in terms of these wild card games, Denver is at Buffalo. Buffalo 9-point favorites, over under 45.5. It opened at Bills -8. The Broncos have been really good against the spread, but come on now. I'm never one to pump up the Buffalo Bills. Their fans are loathsome. They have even called my personal cell phone at one point and left quality messages to me when I made fun of their team on national radio after having lost to Kansas City once again. But nevertheless, Jay, to me, this is the blowout of the weekend. The Bills rested everybody against the Patriots. It's the Broncos on the road in the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. I smell disaster coming.
You pause me again. I think Denver could make it interesting at Buffalo. You pause me because you've swayed me a bit as we sort of think about blowout on the board. So the Patriots lost to the Bills 24-21 at Buffalo. That was week 16, right? 2 weeks prior to that, Bills gave up 44, 42 points. And look, the Broncos offense, right? I know it was against the Chiefs practice squad or whatever, but looked really solid. Certainly I think Bo Nix has some confidence, right? Now, what I will say to you, Gresh, I absolutely do not think the Buffalo Bills are one and done in this postseason. So in a similar fashion, while I don't see the Steelers going in and beating the Ravens, I don't see the Broncos going in and winning, but I think they are far more live. We all joked, if the Bengals get in, watch out, Buffalo. You got Joe Burrow coming to town. You also would have had that Bengals defense coming to town. But in 10, you get Pat Surtain Jr., and the Denver defense coming to town. I think it could be interesting. In Buffalo, right? Last week, you had certain teams that weren't playing for anything. The Eagles found a way to win. The Chiefs just laid flat. But the Bills, it was just, sort of did some things. Josh Allen goes out there to get, I don't know, man. I think it could be tight, but I think they figure it out by the end. But even like a backdoor cover, I believe in Sean Payton, the defense, and Bo Nix. Even though I like Drake May ultimately more than Bo Nix is more ready now at 25. So I think it could be tight, but I do like the Bills to win.
And I really like the Bills in the first half. I know I was all over Baltimore first half last week.
Oh,
I think Bills jump up early.
You were the first one on Baltimore first half that I heard from. Maybe we come at you Tuesdays, but you were on the Ravens last week -9.5. I think they won the first half by 11. It was closer than it needed to be, but I told everyone and their mother that was your pick. I gave that out on multiple platforms, so I tailed you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, friend. I do appreciate that. And look at that there. Bills -5.5, Ravens on the money line. You could start on the first half. You could see
good stuff, Bone.
Gets at the +151. I like that a lot.
I like that, Cody. I think you found the value. I mean, 5.5 is kind of a nice number in the first half if you like Buffalo.
Oh, yeah, and I think Buffalo jumps up early. They're going to be whooped up. Here's the thing. Denver, I think, gets swallowed up by the environment because it's still the old environment. The new stadium isn't ready yet. So you go up there with all those, cretins and troglodytes, and, there's no way you can't get sucked into that environment with those idiots up there. Anyway, Sunday at 4:30, I'll stop insulting the Bills and their fans. Green Bay at Philadelphia. Oh, my goodness. Only Eagles minus 3.5. I love the Eagles in this spot. Jay,
3.5?
Philadelphia.
Did it move in the last hour? I thought it was 4.5.
Well, I mean, maybe it was up. Oh, there you go. So it's 4.5. There you go.
Anyway, I'm with you on the 3.5. Continue.
No, either way, I'm all over the Eagles. This is real simple. Look at what happened to the Green Bay Packers when they played really good teams. That's all of their losses, and it's all of the teams minus maybe the Rams, where they might have caught them on a week where somebody was dinged up that was important. That's their best win of the year. They're going to go to Philly and get beat. The question is, will Philly hold up their end of the bargain, or will that head coach be trying to poke sons of bitches in the eye, give them the thumb to the eye on the sideline?
I believe in the Eagles. That may be my best bet of the week. 4.5, 5.5, whatever it may be. You saw the money line there, minus 225. There was a guy that gave out a comment on the huddle on oddchart.com yesterday. His name is Stevie Pan. He gave out Bills Eagles money line, right? And I like that quite a bit. I don't think either one of these two seeds loses at all, one and done after the season they have had. In the old format, both these teams would have a deserved bye. But anyway, I love Philly here. Green Bay limping in. Quarterback hasn't been great, Jordan Love, all year, and he got banged up a little bit. Christian Watson, I don't think they're going to have him. This is a rematch from week 1 in Brazil. I think Philadelphia is primed, right? Not a lot of information out there about Jalen Hurts. You could be sure he's walking through that door, as is Saquon Barkley, who rested. And I mean, he is going to be jumping out of a cannon. So I'm excited to watch it. And I also like the little momentum Philadelphia established, right? Jalen Hurts goes down. They hang tough in that game against the Commanders. You got Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee, right, as these backup quarterbacks, but you win 2 straight going in. Well, no, Tanner McKee, right? 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions, pass rating of 117.2. His pass rating, 3rd highest in NFL history. Any quarterback 2 games into his career did some decent things. I just think that roster stacked. I love Philly, and that this is going to sound square, but I have a feeling I'm going to wake up Tuesday morning and the Ravens will have won, the Eagles will have won, and the Bills will have won. So I think I'm going to do a parlay with all 3 of those teams, and I may even lay the points just to sort of, because oftentimes when I have a money line parlay that comes in, they all would have covered too, and I don't play it, with the points.
Well, look, if you have a 3-leg money line parlay with favorites, that's also ripe for teaser if you want to, if you so choose. You package them up and throw 7 on them, and now you really start to feel good because 2 of them go the other way on you, and you shrink the Ravens down to 2.5 or something.
Took the words out of my mouth. Good stuff.
Let's go to Sunday night, where this is a fascinating game. I don't know if I'm betting it because I think there's too much sort of inconsistencies going on, but the Washington Commanders are at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Open at Bucks minus 2.5. Last check, it was Bucks minus 3. And I don't know what to expect from this game other than I think, Jay, we're getting points. If I had to go with something, and if I had to go and pick Commanders Tampa, I'd probably go over 50.5 because that game would be most likely to turn into a shootout.
It's like we're sharing a brain. I don't love this pick. This is that one game that you said you don't know if you want to bet on it. I feel you there. I looked at the over 2, perhaps same game teaser with Commanders in the over. But yeah, this game's tough for me to pick. Forced to pick, I would definitely take the points. Commanders plus 3. Commanders coming in kind of hot, right? I think they've won 5 straight.
Yep.
But so for me, I just like Washington. I think that Philadelphia game, and forgive me as you do, you and I are on different platforms. I may have said this before on our show, but when Philadelphia lost that game at Washington when Jalen Hurts went out, forget the Philly side of it, for Washington to get that confidence to win that game in that fashion, regardless of Jalen Hurts playing or not, I think that was huge for them. So I think Washington's going to be very confident coming in. I saw some shaky looks on Baker Mayfield's face even last week. There was a lot at stake. They didn't do what they needed to do necessarily, but that team is so Jekyll and Hyde, Tampa Bay. The defense is shaky. The secondary's banged up. So for me, lean Commanders, but Tampa could win. I believe week 1, I think Tampa won 37-20 in that game at Tampa. So I guess, it wouldn't shock me if Tampa plays their best game and does some things. I lean Commanders, though.
Yeah, man, Baker Mayfield, I just go for points. I think when Mayfield plays now. And then on Monday night, Minnesota at the Rams. Vikings open -2.5. Now it's -2. Over under 47.5. Road favorites are 7-1 against the spread in Monday games this season. The Rams will put up a fight. O'Connell knows how to deal with them. Minnesota's got the better defense as well, even though they've taken some dings. I think it's close, but Minnesota gets it.
I like this simple take, and I feel like you might be right. And we appreciate you all joining us, by the way, on Gas Morning Drive, Gresh Anik Show. Appreciate you very much. Tuesdays, live, 11 a.m. I like the Los Angeles Rams on the money line. And just a quick aside, I actually think I might have even liked the Rams if Detroit had lost and was coming into town. I felt as though the loser of that number 1 seed was ripe for the picking against Los Angeles. So this is a rematch from a Thursday night game earlier in the season. Rams won 30-20 at LA. But this Rams team, Gresh, right, started the season 1-4, right? I was saying they should be sellers and move Cooper Kupp, right? They get to 10-6 from 1-4 and could have certainly beaten Seattle yesterday or a couple days ago had they needed to, right? So in Minnesota, the opportunity from the 1 seed now goes to the 5 and on the road. So I expect the Rams to maybe be extremely confident Monday night, and maybe Sam Darnold not as confident in the Vikings coming in. However, I believe in Kevin O'Connell, and that 9-game winning streak of Minnesota, I don't think just evaporates with that sort of bad spot at Detroit. So I can't wait. I would love to sit here with you on this game and be like, oh, Gresh, I don't know, man. What do you think, man? Like, and just sit here and go off air because it's such a fascinating game. Yeah, I really, so I can go both ways.
No, the game is more fascinating than I think the betting opportunities. This might be one where you go to the markets like Cody is pulled up right here. Anytime touchdown, Kyron Williams has been hot. Justin Jefferson a -110 to score a touchdown. I mean, those are two pretty good picks right there. I think though, Jay, for me, this is a kind of a stay away game. Too much wonkiness with Sam Darnold. The Rams are at home. I don't know. I just get bad vibes in doing anything relative to this game on the betting market.
Yeah, I expect a high scoring game in prime time, so I may look at that over 46.5. But when you said the Vikings in a close one, in a way, I'm rooting for the Vikings to have this season not be sort of for naught, regardless, even though you and I don't really believe in Sam Darnold. See, you don't believe in Sam Darnold in the same way I don't. So right. Darnold at Stafford, Rams plus money, I've already placed a wager. But yeah, it's not going to surprise me at all if the Vikings win. So I agree with you, not huge dollars.
Yeah, I think I like those money line parlays with the favorites and the teams that we really believe in. And I think there's some teaser opportunities there as well. Yep. There still is some softness in the market. You just got to dig in on it a little bit. And if you have those really heavy leans like you and I do, that's where you can truly hone in and start to focus on maybe there are some props along the way that you can cherry pick.
And I really like looking into the crystal ball a little bit or looking at the bracket sometimes at this stage, right? And I still think as you look at the board, the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, I think there's some value there, right? Last season, they won at Baltimore and at Buffalo to get to their back-to-back title. This year, their first round matchup will be either the Chargers, probably the toughest there, Texans, Steelers, or Broncos, right? And then it'll be probably Baltimore or Buffalo, just one of them in Arrowhead. So I think the Chiefs at plus 350, plus 370, wherever it is, some value there. But I'll say right now, I am on the Baltimore Ravens train, Gresh. As soon as this show ends, before I even see your face after the post show, I'm going to be punching them 6-1 to win the whole thing. I think it's Lamar Jackson's time. Steve McLean on the huddle yesterday gave out the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I think it's happening. I think it's Lamar Jackson's time. As a Patriots fan, even back in the day when Lamar was going against Brady, he's who I feared the most without question.
Well, good luck. I like Baltimore. I just don't know about winning the whole thing. Maybe you got some of that Mike Evans money. Did you hit like a big final play, like Mike Evans, and make $3.5 million to where you're going to jump in all in on the Ravens and go throw big dollars on the Ravens? But how about that Mike Evans deal at the end of the game?
Unbelievable. Everything about it. And one point that many have made, but the love from his teammates, the genuine love from his teammates, and regardless of the money, it's like they wanted the 1,000, they wanted the record, not the money. And
Jerry Rice record, yeah,
yes, and exactly, but to see sort of them react to him, and I love when guys stay. Like, I think he easily could have left town. Brady's gone. I'm not going to stay here with Baker Mayfield. I have so much respect for him staying in Tampa. I hope he finishes his career there. I'm heartbroken as a Boston fan, whether it's Mookie Betts, Tom Brady. I'll never get over Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay. I'm a child still about it, Gresh. So anyway, I love Mike Evans. Everything about that was incredible.
Let's jump quickly to the college football playoff because we have a Thursday game and a Friday game. On Thursday, it'll be the Capital One Orange Bowl where Notre Dame is going to take on Penn State. Right now, or at least at ESPN Bet, it's Notre Dame -2, over under 46.5. This is here's the spot. And I know I pumped it up earlier against SMU. And I think you or someone were the one who said, the name brand wasn't big enough with SMU. Well, here it is with Notre Dame. This is where James Franklin soils the back of the britches. I'm not a big lover of Marcus Freeman, but you know what I do believe in? Defense. And Notre Dame's defense has done well, and it travels. So I'm riding Notre Dame to the national championship in part because of defense and the idiot factor on the other side with the head coach.
Well, we knew which direction you were going. This is a really tough game for me. And I hate to say it, I do believe the other side of the bracket will determine your 2024-2025 collegiate football national champion. So this game doesn't pique my interest quite as much. The matchup, I would be much more interested in the championship game if Notre Dame was representing this side of the bracket. Mm-hmm. And I think that Notre Dame found a way to get through without really playing their best game. So I think that there is some potential for them to play better and find a way to win. But I'm not touching this game from a gambling standpoint until I do more research, until I really dive into it. Because for me, the other side of it, I am convicted on the Ohio State Buckeyes finding a way to win that game. I don't know if I'm going to lay the points. I know we're going to get there.
Well, I know you've been convicted before, but it's good that you have conviction on Ohio State -5.5. That was too easy, the convicted. I love it. That's great. Oh, I'm with you. Ohio State wins. I don't know about 5.5. I think I like OSU more on the money line. And as I'm looking at DraftKings right now,
that's it.
If you go Ohio State, Notre Dame money line, that gets you to +146 on the odds. So a little like we talked about in the NFL, maybe if you do have the lean of, say, Notre Dame, Ohio State, because I'm with you. So what's it get? Sorry, it's -142. Does that say right there? Code's pulling that up.
It'll get us plus money once it loads.
Oh, there we go. +146. Perfect. That looks good. Why do you love Ohio State so much? Because Texas honestly is loaded with talent.
I'm not going to pretend I'm some deep college football fan, but I will tell you, as soon as Ohio State lost to Michigan, right? And that's why I think the Vikings in the NFL could make some noise. As soon as Ohio State lost to Michigan, they're just done. It's over. That's it. Just everything that happened during the season. A lot of people liked Ohio State to win it all before that Michigan game. And because of that one game, the recency bias in that one game, everyone just sort of forgot about Ohio State. And the beautiful thing about that 12-team playoff is that they absolutely have a chance to win the whole thing and have Ryan Day ride off into the sunset. Not ride off, but stay right where he is. And so the fact that it's actually going to happen, I believed in them. I've been playing them every step of the way, so I'll continue to ride them. That spread's moved around. It's actually moved down to maybe a playable number for me at 5.5. I may look at the Buckeyes in the first half, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to start to look at some cross-sport parlays here. But if you like Ohio State, given that I said I believe the champion comes out of that side of the bracket, if you like Ohio State here, I've tied Ohio State to win the title to several bets because I do believe they're going to be favored. I don't know, maybe by a touchdown or more there could be a look headline against either Notre Dame or Penn State if they get through Texas.
Well, you tied them in because you're a smart man and you know how to bet. And that is the way to do it, to end up grabbing some extra value there. And, there's your, look at that, what is that? Ohio State to win the Natty, and then Baltimore plus 11. Oh, wow.
So, Gresh,
that is juicy right there. Ohio State. I don't know about the Ravens end of it, but I love that parlay, though, because the odds are fantastic.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You don't like the Ravens end of it, and so you sort of, I don't know if it was a face or something you made when I brought up the Ravens, but so who do you like coming out of the AFC? I believe the AFC is more top heavy than a more wide open NFC, but in the AFC, I mean, it sounds like you're almost laughing at the Ravens. I wish they could play that in the film room, but who do you like? Chiefs?
Well,
Bills?
I mean, no, it's the Chiefs, and look, they're New England 2.0. You and I have lived this for 20 years with Tom Brady. The Chiefs have peaked, or they haven't peaked, excuse me. They're getting healthy at the right time. That's why I say they haven't peaked, because now they're going to have the full complement of guys. They got 2 games at home. Josh Allen going on the road to getting a win. Let's be real. There's been one quarterback other than Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. who has slayed the dragon known as Pat Mahomes, and that's Joe Burrow, and he's sitting at home.
Well, but obviously we got both sides and all three phases. And when you think, we talked about the first round matchup for the Chiefs, I certainly see a lot of value still in the Chiefs, even though I do believe the Ravens will find a way this year. But they're going to face either Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Russell Wilson, or Bo Nix. Those are the 4 quarterbacks. Probably going to be, wouldn't you think about probably Chargers, right? You like the Chargers to win that game. So most likely, and so it's a division matchup. So you like the Chiefs to be able to handle the Chargers despite. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Look, the Chiefs, unfortunately, Jay, we lived it on the positive side. Now we have to recognize it when someone else has done it. And, they got the coach, they got the quarterback, they're healthy, and they got home field. Tell me that wasn't the Belichick way for about 15 years with Tom Brady.
And the Chiefs really feel as though they're going to be as healthy as any point during the season. I just think Lamar Jackson is a big problem. And I think that ultimately any given Sunday, I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a magical run. I don't really believe in Buffalo at this stage for some reason. I think their defense scares me a little bit.
I'm with you too. I don't believe in Buffalo. And let me give you at least a little bit of hope. And I know we've gone into gas overtime here, right? But I looked this up the other night because I was kind of bickering with someone on ESPN radio about the Ravens. If you look at the Ravens came up just short for team rushing of their 2019 NFL record-setting season of like 32-78. Ravens were like 100 yards short this year, right? The difference was in 2019, the leading rusher was Lamar Jackson. Do you know who the complement was? Mark Ingram. Now, Mark Ingram, nice player, right? But he had less rushing yards than Lamar. This year, they almost set the record, but it's 1,900 yards from a power running back who's not going to fade in Derrick Henry with Lamar as the complement. So there's your hope for the Ravens based on this big rushing season that they've had, but they're constructed very differently.
Lamar Jackson, if let's say Lamar Jackson had never won the MVP before, don't you think he'd be getting it this year over Josh Allen?
You would think so, because the
best statistical
numbers,
season of all time.
Yeah, very much so. And setting the career quarterback rushing record and all that. He look, Lamar Jackson has not. He's shown that guys that are different than the pocket passers can play in the NFL. The problem is you can only do it with Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick, and those guys come along about once every 15 years, let's say, right?
So real quick, and then you can get us out of here. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, right? Whether it's narratives, I know there are other football players on the team, but those go, can't get it done in the post. Haven't been able. And everyone wants to anoint Joe Burrow. He did get to the Super Bowl. He didn't win it yet. So Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen hate to have a question like this, but who's more clutch? Like, who do you believe in more to get it done in the postseason if it's not going to be Mahomes?
Oh man, I guess wow. I guess I'll lean Allen. He's a little more wild with the football, but I think he's more accurate at times. That's a real choice. I guess you would lean Lamar.
Definitely. I think he's going to find a way to play well when it matters this year.
What has spooked me on Lamar is he's blown it at home. I know we're up against it. However, friend, one of our favorite sports, maybe our favorite in the end, UFC is back this weekend. Thank God. Now, this is a fight night, and the main event is, I'm going to try to go John Anik here. It's Amanda Ribas at minus 205, not terrible, against Mackenzie Dern at plus 170. What do you see in this main event coming up?
Gresh, if I'm being honest with you, I am so excited for UFC 311 because I'm leaving a week from tomorrow. It's hard for me not to be focused on that card, which is just banging. But no, I mean, I think there's some value on Dern at plus money. Betting on women's mixed martial arts has been very challenging for me over the years, so I'm not running to the window to do so in this main event. I think Cody Merrow, who has a great feel for mixed martial arts gambling, the producer of our program, I think he probably likes Dern in this spot at plus money. I don't know if he put up the current odds there, but no, I would definitely lean Mackenzie Dern. But from a gambling standpoint, when I see UFC Fight Night cards like this, I'm trying to I talk about tuning out noise for the NFL. I'm trying to do as much research and watching a film on some of these fighters I know less about if I'm looking for spots to place wagers on them, for example. So I'll go back, and I'll say real quick, like my guy Bilal Muhammad remembers if I said Mackenzie Dern, Bilal might be able to rack off her last 3 opponents from memory and picture moments from those fights where I need to do my research. But so yeah, Mackenzie Dern plus 170, I can't ignore it. I think she could be stronger, more physically, but Ribas a lot of times has proved people wrong, and I think she's a designated favorite for a reason.
Yeah, and I wonder if the full fight is in play here. The over 4.5 was at minus 210. That's to me what I look for is the whole, do you have an insane finisher in a women's fight, or is it likely to go the distance? Because I feel like more of the women's fights go the distance than the men's fights. But look, I'm just happy to get UFC back up and rolling once again. And you mentioned, the pay-per-view that's coming up right around the corner. Some of the fights on there, Beneil Dariush against Moicano. Moicano's a crazy person. I don't just love his post fights. I love his fights.
Right. Good stuff.
Prohaska against Hill and stuff like that. I mean, so we got a whole bunch of good
UFC. Then Merab versus Umar happening a little sooner than Merab would have wanted it to happen. Then main event.
But again, that's another guy, Merab. He's touched. I mean, he just wants to fight everybody. It's crazy. He's even fighting fans, for God's sakes. Yeah. He's the Nick Sirianni of the UFC.
Dude, I love it. But I'll say my wife is from Los Angeles. I love LA, baby. As more than I told her I'm 46 years old. I told her I want to be back in LA by the time I'm 40. Come at me, by the way. But I love LA. Can't wait to get out there.
I was going to say it's a great place if you like smog and stuff like that. I've only been a couple of different times, but
that's why you're talking about smog. It's the most beautiful place in the world. You've only been a couple times. That's why he's talking about smog.
But
doesn't know what he's talking about.
But you also have someone who can guide you through the hell that is LA, and we are from Boston. It is the crappiest place to drive on earth until you go to LA and sit in smog for 6 hours.
Traffic. I am with you. Yeah.
Do you do something different with your and this was in LA last night from
I had to jump in with the LA talk, Gresh. I'm sorry. I'm going to hijack this from you a little bit. So Jason is all ready to go to LA. This was at this beautiful new arena that the UFC is going to be at. WWE was making their Netflix debut on Raw. Triple H famously said, you're not going to CBS and chill. So Netflix, they had to bring the heat. Everything going on in the sports media these days with lawsuits and all the stuff that we won't get into. But I just want to give a credit to Bill Simmons here. I mean, look at the man fighting for his life there. Just not trying to get in any meme talk whatsoever. Look at him right there with his son, just looking forward. Huge UFC fan his son is. Bill Simmons, credit to you. You're not going to make any wife upset with your moves there. So great job to Bill Simmons.
Although I will say this, that if I were sitting there on Monday Night Raw and Nikki Bella is dancing in front of me and I don't look and my wife was sitting beside me, she would be gawking at that ass, whereas I would be trying to stay away. So I get what Simmons is doing. However, I think most wives recognize beautiful women. And if she's kind of dancing and gyrating in front of you and you took a peeky on national television, that ain't the end of the world.
I hear you can whet the appetite a little bit, long as you eat at home, right? I mean, I think it's fine. But I will say, Bill Simmons, I see him at this event and I'm like, this motherfucker who I love, you know, I wish he liked the UFC, man. His kid can't get enough of it. And Bill Simmons, there are certain people that have no room in their life for the UFC. And I wish some of them, especially someone like Bill Simmons, did.
Yeah, Teddy Atlas used to be one of them, and then he smartened up. Oh, did I say that publicly? Well, I guess that's how we'll end gas today here. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. We will be back next Tuesday. We'll have football games to go through. We'll have a national championship game to preview. We'll have a full UFC preview. We will go up and down the card, and hopefully we have some coaching betting lines that we can start to jump into as well once these interviews kind of pick up here over the next couple of weeks. Go fix that hair, brother. I'm giving you the opportunity. You told me you had something, so I know I half wrapped it up.
No, I mean, you want me to go fix my hair? I mean, I told you, Cody I got nothing. What do you mean? I told you I had something.
You told me you had something about my hair and you were going to bust my balls. And now I give you the opening and you're completely shitting the bed right now.
I thought you were talking about my hair. What I wanted to tell you, you're right about your hair, is that your haircut looks incredible. And I know that your wife agrees with me. So look at this. No, yeah, he thinks I'm blowing smoke. No, good. Now I don't care how much time's left. Now I'm going to take my time. I thought you were talking about my hair because Gresham, people talk about my hair from time to time. It's a big topic in my life. When you keep it high and tight, I don't know how often it is between haircuts, but it needs to be less time in between haircuts. Look, when you came on the screen, I was almost like blown away. That's a good looking cat. Does your wife agree with me?
Well, yeah, because it's one of her great friends who is my hairdresser. And during TV season, I have a schedule. It is 3.5 weeks in between haircuts from the end of August through the middle of January. I used to go to February, but the Patriots have screwed that up now. So yes, not only admittedly do I have a hairdresser, I have relatively set scheduled appointments, because managing it for this camera versus managing my hair for TV is like two completely different things.
Listen to this guy. He's like a director and producer's dream. But I will say, I think we need to shorten the time between haircuts slightly. And I think we need to, I'm about to shave this whole thing off. You know, I fluctuate, but I think Gresh, I think you could pull off there are beards that I can't pull off because my wife says I'm not tough enough, but I think you could pull off some tremendous beards. But anyway, I know this is way off the rails, but I love you. Take us.
No, I love you too. And I can't grow all the way. So I like trim it down. But again, like I had a big meeting yesterday, right? Down at the Rhode Island Lottery with those people about some sportsbook stuff. So nice. I trimmed it up. I looked like you. I had the whole neck beard thing going and stuff. So when I trim it up, it looks different. Look, here's the real thing. If I were a little thinner right now, I'd probably just get rid of it. But I noticed that, people go with the facial hair whenever they're trying to cover up a little bit.
Well, he's a New York Yankee at heart, right? Wants to shave his face, but my wife wouldn't allow me clean shaven at my wedding. Like when I shave my face today, she won't give me that same look in her eye. You know what I mean? She likes a little scruff.
All right, so there you go. So you just go, you like get it down to the, where there's a little bit to grow in quick.
Yeah, like I'll shave fully here, and then I won't shave till after UFC 311. I'll shave my face once, and then however it falls after.
Oh, well, here's what I know. At UFC 311, we will see Jason probably sitting near, I don't know, some former UFC fighter or something like that. Tight pants will be working. I'm sure the tight jacket.
I got tight pants on right now, Gresh.
I'm sure you do. Oh, Jesus.
Some
God.
Tight Carolina blue, baby. Right. Chapel Bill, way off the rails. Some tight sweats.
Okay, you know what, Chapel Bill, I'm not going to give you hell on that, but fine. I'm sure. Will your wife dress you for LA?
Oh, you can be sure she makes sure the wardrobe is where it needs to be and fits are tight.
Yeah, I was going to say, walking around Beverly Hills, and they're like, hey, there's that guy.
I'm no dummy. I married a woman from Los Angeles, moved out there to try and be an actor. That didn't work out, but I made sure to find my wife out there.
Hey, listen, Cody Rhodes did that, and he ended up being WWE champion. So sometimes the actor road leads you down a different path, friend. All right, that's it. So there we go. Enough shitting on each other's hair and all that stuff. Even though he gave me the backhanded compliment, set me up like he was going to rip on me, and then
I froze on camera.
That is true. That's good. Well,
I thought we were going to get the breaks.
No, I have a funny feeling that Cody will be sending that to John and he can give you hell and all that. But anyway, folks, that's it for gas. I know we went overtime. We're done ripping on each other. We'll see you next week.